very much for everyone coming tonight. Thank you very much for getting involved on Twitter. I know I've spoken to a couple of you a bit more in depth. Obviously, myself and Cal have worked a fair bit together over the last couple of months as he started to build his academy structure at Toaster. And I know both me and Cal have been talking to John. I know he's also aiming to get his stuff set up with the academy at Sunderland. The whole premise behind tonight is creating a kind of an open forum to share ideas, to collaborate within grassroots. A lot of these webinars, a lot of these kind of podcast kind of style things is all from the top end, so the RFU or other sporting associations, and it's to create an open forum, mainly based around academy rugby. There's quite a few academy kind of rugby players and academy coaching staff within the call and who's getting involved and interested. And that's obviously where kind of myself, with my position at Peterborough, is to lead the academy. But it's also about to link in with other sports. So forgive me if I pronounce it wrong, but we have got Ajit, who is from Vancouver, who is a technical football director over in Vancouver. So I'd be interested to see kind of how sport over there is different, how they're working on recruiting players and retaining players, and kind of getting a view, getting an outline for kind of ideas that we can take on board within our kind of rugby development over here. There are a couple of other guys who've shown interest from Spain. There's 3 Spanish coaches who are interested in joining us. They couldn't make it tonight. But yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. It's going to be an open forum. We'll start chatting in a minute. We'll open up all the microphones, and it's kind of a free for all. I'm not proclaiming that I know everything. John Sisme, who's here with us tonight, is
James,
my senior academy coach at Peterborough. So he's responsible
James,
for.
can you come down urgently?
So I'm muting his son. So Sis is our academy senior coach. He's responsible for our 17 and 18s. As his son miraculously walks in topless, which is probably not very PG, but we'll just carry on past that. So my position, I'll give you a quick overview of what I do at Peterborough and how we work, and then we'll open up. Tonight's topics are looking at how we are recruiting and retaining players.
I am muted, don't go. Yes, I am.
You're not muted. You're not, Sis. You are now. How we recruit and retain players in lockdown, and then giving a bit of an overview of how we kind of go through planning an academy season. Me and Cal have worked quite closely on this over the past couple of months, so he's got some good ideas that he's going to share, and also it's going to give a good help to some of you guys who are in the same kind of process. So my role at Peterborough is head of academy rugby. So I am in charge of looking after our kind of full structure, planning out our season. I've got 2 head coaches. So I've got John Sis, who's with us tonight, who's our senior academy head coach. So he's responsible for the training and match days for under 17s and under 18s rugby. We've then got Stuart, who's our junior academy coach, who is responsible for under 16s. So we kind of merge our 16, 17, 18s to create one formal structure. We all train on the same nights. We all follow the same patterns, the same calls. The key part about that is we get to link in with our seniors squads as well. So we've got 5 senior players who also come down and coach with us. They do line-out training, backs works, specific player, specific positions, scrum half, fly off, that kind of stuff. That's kind of how we have our senior management. Underneath them, we've got a total of 15 coaching staff between 16, 17 and 18s that all work together. We've got 5 what we're classing as backroom staff, so team managers, social team leaders, physios, all that kind of stuff. Across the 3 age groups for this coming season, we'll have a total of 65 plus players, with approximately 32 of them being for our senior academy, looking at where we were from last season, where we are looking for going forward. There's a lot of planning, there's a lot of responsibility that comes in when you've got to think about academy, when you've got to think about bringing all these players together. You've got to make sure the forms are in the correct order. You've got to make sure that everyone is signed off to play if you want to play up. So that's where my role comes in. So as head of academy rugby, it's kind of a, I wouldn't say director of rugby role, but it's an overseer of the program. It's ensuring all of our kind of generalised training, set season plan this year, so we know that when we're coming up to league play, we need to start focusing on leashes. We're coming up to get bigger to start looking tactically. And it's all in all the air into one clean, somewhat all. That's kind of Peterborough. It's a relatively to me. We've been building this for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So yeah, that's where we are. Cal, I'm sure we'll chat in a bit, is in a relatively earlier, newer stage than what we are. He went up his academy this year. He's just taken on kind of the same role as me, Toaster, and I'm talking very closely with John, ideas and sharing ideas and how to just work out everything. So the first kind of area we talk about, and I'm going to unmute everyone in a second as well, is to think about recruitment and retaining players during lockdown. So a couple of the things, what I'll do is I'll unmute everyone. A couple of the things that we are thinking about, a couple of things that we're looking at is player challenges to keep our players active, keep our players engaged. I know Poster have brought in houses, training houses, which I'm sure Cal wouldn't mind talking about. If you want to take a lead for a sec, Cal.
Yeah, so I am Cal, Toastestrians, same county as Jordan. So obviously I've just started this program in Toes. So I've been coaching 7 years now, if in different stages, if that was Northampton Saints, EPG or East Mids shadow coaching. Was unfortunate to not go with the England students coaching, just shadowing, because I broke my leg right at the beginning of the season. So that was not going to Portsmouth with them, which would have been a great opportunity. But I came up with the idea where we need to, the committee expressed their concern where Toasters been we've known around the county as used to be one of the strongest teams around, but for the previous 5 years, more kids are going to uni. We've all seen, talk about kids, me and Jordan just left, but the deterioration of numbers going from junior rugby to seniors is rapidly declining. I don't know if you see that in your clubs, but we're definitely seeing it in ours. So I came up with the idea of having an academy just to kind of change the image for the boys to be proud of what they are. So we've got Moulton College, which is a college round where we are, where lots of the boys go with that academy approach and they buy into it. So adapting roles from there, and we've just kind of utilised that to our advantage to try to see next year and the following 3 years I've got this contract, as I say, to see if it changes the senior, success rate of going into seniors. Instead of 4 lads a year, hopefully changing that to push to 10 or 12, because obviously we have uni to worry about. So it's just creating that image for what we've got to desire. So that's really what I've been planned to do. Do you want me to go on about House Cup and stuff?
Yeah, you could do, please, mate.
So I came up with the idea about lockdown. The boys were getting I wouldn't say bored, but obviously we're trapped inside. We're not doing much. We're allowed to go out exercising. So I created this thing called the House Cup. So I've split the boys from 18s, 17s, and the 16s haven't been confirmed yet, but I'll go on that a bit later. Into 4 different groups, mixture of 18s and 17s, because they've never met each other. Because they're all new. The boys were 16 previous, and the academy wasn't there last year. So I decided 4 house groups of 4 named after 4 ex-players or volunteers or someone who shows that true desire of the club. So you all have them people who you go, oh yeah, he's the local run the club, he's the big man, or ex-players who have died or something like that. So we've named them 4 greats of Toast Estuarians. So the boys have something to know what they're trying to achieve. And then is there any chance I can share my screen, Jordan?
Yeah, you should be able to.
I'll do
The option to.
Just, Carl, just quickly, whilst you're going to share your screen there,
yeah.
you noticed that there was obviously the decline in numbers.
Yeah.
Were you able to go back and see the reasons for the decline? Were you able to get in contact with any of those past players and ask them that question via SurveyMonkey or
Yeah. So that's what I've done. So
okay.
I know personally because I'm 22.
Yeah.
And all the boys who I grew up playing for 15 years and having quite a lot of success in that era have all gone and decided it's not for them anymore.
Yeah.
It was so some people said it was pressure from parents. Some people said it was because I was playing with my mates, and when I got to seniors, I was the only one there. So I was like, this isn't for me because I didn't know anyone. So lots of different reasons. So I sent out a SurveyMonkey and got about 300 responses of all players who play, past players, why, even the social players, why they don't play anymore. And we found out Toes were their own positives started to eat them alive. So when the 3rd team ended up playing in the highest tier of our merit league with the likes of Peace for a Seconds and all this, like all player teams of Bedford Aft Blues who are all national clubs playing up, and then our 2nd team were playing in the National Reserves League. So they're playing teams from National 1 2nd team. So these players who fancied just a mate playing with their mates for a beer, but they were quite a decent player, so they played it in the 2s, had to travel all the way up to Burton-on-Trent on a Saturday to get absolutely dicked, basically. And that's not what they wanted, because they started work now on a Monday. They didn't want that. They just wanted a social type of rugby.
Yeah.
So the club's own successes kind of hit them in the arse and ruin their own rapport of players.
Yeah. So just, I know you want to share something, but
that's okay.
I know this story quite well, because before I came to my club, pretty much same things happened. The club that I'm at the moment. So it's kind of the landscape probably isn't much different north, south, east, or west.
No.
But I mean, who made that decision that those guys should go up into those leagues? Were they promoted automatically? Because certainly down in Kent, you can nominate not to go up still. You could win the league in the merits, and you could say, actually, we've used 64 players. It is just not worth us going up. So it's kind of, the club fulfills its own duty. Oh, we won the league. But like my 3rd team, they won their league. They went up. They got absolutely tonked last year, refused to play. And they dropped out the league at Christmas, and they're now back into the league where they get a nice couple of local derbies for this year, and they're very happy. But they did want to go up until they realised what they had to face, and then it was kind of quick.
Yeah, that's exactly what we found. So obviously, I've never stopped playing. I've gone into coaching this year, but I had the lucky opportunity to captain the third team at the age of 18 because there was just. So I was playing with all the blokes who played when my dad played, which was 15 years ago. So these guys were legends of the club, absolute great rugby players in our local facility. But these lads are 45 now. They do not want to be travelling up to Derby, which is 2 hours when they've got family or work in the morning. And I was trying to explain this, but the club are like, oh, it's a good image. But now with losing players, so our second and thirds combine as a group. So we've got our first team at the moment and our 2s and 3s. So the 2s will get a game.
Yeah.
All the 3s will go and play in the 2s.
Yeah.
So, for example, we had a case of Toaster and Peterborough first team are in the same division, as well as Peterborough 2s and Toaster 2s. My brother at 18 played his first match against Peterborough 2s, and Peterborough 2s are obviously fighting to get into their first team. My brother is nowhere near that stage yet, physically or just mentally playing that senior game. So it's such a class in depth where the club have decided to have success over player welfare till it was announced where we're struggling for players.
Yeah.
So the committee have now sat back and gone, shit, we need to change things.
Yeah.
So the thirds this year, obviously COVID happened, went straight back into Div 5 of the Merit League. So they started again, but they've lost all the players. So they now have to recruit again. But so it's a building process again. So the 2s and 3s are still one group, but hopefully in a couple of years' time, that will change again.
Cool.
Especially with Colts going up.
Yeah, totally.
And not playing in the 2s game, getting absolutely nailed, like I'm sure we all did. All right, I'll just show you the house cup quickly. Oh, no, there's one. So, can you all see the screen? Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Can you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my aims were to create team cohesion. All right. So through games, tasks, solo or team challenges, to encourage competition throughout this current climate. So the boys are competitive. They're 17 and 18 years old. They're fighting hormones. They are aggressive about this competition. They honestly, it's like hyenas in the group chat at the moment because they post stuff all the time and make sure I check it to put it on their tally. So I talked about the teams. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. So basically, I will set out different challenges each week. So I've created an email for each house captain because of safeguarding. I don't want them to have their names on stuff. So they've created a Facebook page for their house colour. So their team colour is, their Facebook profile is called Tosestrian's Blue Team. So it's not naming any names for safeguarding processes. It's protecting ourselves because we're not having 17-year-olds on our Facebook. And they just solely post what they need to do for the team challenges. So to promote stuff like exercise, record a cardiovascular 2 points per kilometre. So they've all got Strava these days or Under Armour running app, and all they do is screenshot it and send it to their house captain to post on their Facebook page. So then I put points on and so on. So I'll show you the point system in a sec. Group exercises ×2. So it starts, obviously we're allowed 6 people now, social distancing, and the teams are of 12. So they split themselves up and sometimes go into groups of 6 and all exercise all together. So they're getting to know each other in the process of exercising safely. Because obviously 18s and 17-year-olds still need to know who they're going to pass to whenever we're allowed to pass a rugby ball to each other in a game situation. Winning team challenges. So if I go now down to this, so house captains was to set up their academy Facebook page. Individuals was to start exercising and create distance. Team tasks. So what I've set team task is all creative stuff and a bit of a laugh. So they've got to create a TikTok. It's very relative. They're 18, 17. They're following girls on TikTok and whatever, but they've got to do it themselves. So they're all like, oh yeah, we're manly, but they've got to create a TikTok with their own house music, which is just a challenge for them to be creative and have a bit of a laugh with it. So lose all that masculinity and just lose that boisterousness and just have a bit of a laugh while we're in lockdown. So that's why I've created the house cup. Just quickly, can you see the house cup for this Excel sheet?
No, mate.
All right, so this is the Excel sheet. So the teams have obviously got their points and record. So then each day I record how many kilometers they've done. So this was yesterday, and they've got 876 kilometers between them. So they're in Norway at the moment. So I text them at 10 o'clock saying we're 876 kilometers. And I look where 876 kilometers is from our clubhouse, and it's Norway. So I just text them we're in Norway, and they love the idea. And then obviously leaderboards. So they're already at 1,100 points each. So competitive is not even so they're exercising, they're being competitive, they're being safe, and they're moving forward in their exercise. So when season comes, when we play Peterborough in our pre-season friendly, we'll be solid and all fit as a fiddle, except me running the sideline. But they're all getting fit still, and I've just found it was an easier way of, instead of just go for a run, lads, and go for it. That's just not going to work for them anymore. So we've just got to add a competitive edge for it. And that's me, really, mate.
Yeah, so I'll just pick up off of Cal because we've done a very similar thing at Peterborough. So we set everyone in our academy, whether you are a player, whether you are a parent, whether you are a random family member, whether you're a coach, throughout the whole of May, the idea was to get active. So again, what Cal was saying, they've got Strava or they've got the Under Armour app. So we challenged them to get out to either walk, jog, or run a set kilometre, whatever distance they wanted to do each day. And it was forwards versus backs versus the parents. So we added the parents in there to give it that extra kind of competitiveness, to which the parents took it upon themselves and absolutely stormed it. So I think the parents actually have turned out to be fitter than most of the players have. I can't actually remember off the head what the final scores were. For the whole of May, the parents covered 805 kilometres. Our forwards covered 408, and our backs sadly brought up the rear with 105. Probably too busy shining their boots and doing their hair. So we also said that we've done the competitive challenge. We've tried to engage not just our players, but obviously our parents. It just adds that extra kind of the fight between them. If the parents are kind of going out daily, going on jogs, and the kids see that, it's kind of well, if they're doing it, I better get on it and do it. And they're always trying to beat each other. I think this month we're doing a 23 press up a day challenge. They're sending their videos doing 23 press ups every day. I don't think we've got a reward for that yet. The reward for our May challenge was every parent, being as they won it, who completed the challenge gets a free drink at the bar, when obviously we don't have to social distance anymore. So it's all these different kind of, not so much incentives for them to keep active and keep fit, but it's just, you just got to try and make it fun. We have actually had 2 players contact me today who used to play at the academy younger, when they were in, I think, under 14s, who are going to be rejoining us for next season. So it's kind of having an effect. You've got to try and keep on top of it. You can get snowed under if you've got 60 people messaging you how many kilometres they've done and screenshots and everything like that. So has anyone got any thoughts, questions? It is an open forum. We don't just want to be listening to me or Cal or anyone all night long. We can answer as much as possible. I don't know everything, but I can surely try. John, is there anything from you? Oh, go on, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, just to jump in. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm Tim. I'm from Harpenden Rugby Club in Hertfordshire. I coach. I'm head of academy at Harpenden. Our academy is just under 17s, under 18s. We've got about 100 lads. I coach in the player pathway at Saracens, and I'm backs coach at Hertfordshire for the under 16s age group. So mainly junior rugby is sort of where I sit. Just on the keeping people together. So our incoming under 17s into the academy don't really know our under 17s who have gone up to under 18. So we've been trying, like you guys, to integrate and get people to know each other. And we've got about 100 lads, I guess, across the two age groups. We only play this year or this coming season as under 18s. So we've been using something called Challenge Hound. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's an app that logs miles through all of your different devices. And we first of all set them a challenge that we were going to go from our rugby club to Benidorm on rugby tour virtually. And we had to get there. So everyone logged their miles, walking, running, swimming, rowing, or cycling. And we set like, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks to get there. And we got there within about 3 days. So the guys all really engaged with it, which was great. So what we then did was we said, we're going to go from Benidorm now. We're going to go to South Africa to watch the Lions. So we've got to cycle a certain amount of way. We've got to run a certain amount of it, and we've got to swim a certain amount of it. So go and log your titles. And each Friday we were logging the people who had done the most miles in the running category, in the cycling, and in the rowing and swimming. And the top three in each of those categories would win points. And that basically is non-alcoholic drink tokens behind the bar. And then we've just got to South Africa, and we've got like we've logged the 100-mile club, the marathon club for this, the runners and things like that. So everyone sort of got involved, and we're just doing a very short and sweet forwards v backs challenge at the moment. Again, just to get the fatties arguing with the skinnies and vice versa. And today we've just got them all doing the Bronco challenge, so they're all just starting to log their times. And we've done weight categories, so depending on how much they weigh is what category they go into. So they're not, you haven't got a front row forward competing with a specialist runner in the backs type thing. So that seems to be, touch wood, they seem to be engaged. We've got a lot of surly under 18, I'm not doing that, but they're all joining in, which is fabulous. So Challenge Hounds is a recommendation, is my input.
And have all of your players uptaken that, or are you still seeing some players that are struggling to get involved?
Yeah, there's probably about 13% of them that are not getting involved. So we've given them a little nudge, a little friendly, join in, we'd love to have you, getting involved, but some are definitely, I don't think, going to be involved. We have checked just to make sure that they've got a device that they can record stuff on, and to make sure that that's not a reason that they're not getting involved. It's not a barrier, but so we check that with parents, and it's all fine. But they're either studying very, very hard for their A levels, or whatever they're doing at the moment, or they're just lazy gits, one or the other.
Warzone.
Or on their Xbox or whatever, yeah.
I would like to, now that he's back.
Sorry, Jordan.
That's right. I'd like to invite I think I pronounced it right. Forgive me if it's not.
That's good enough.
Just to talk about kind of your role, talk about what kind of impacts this current joyful pandemic is having over in Vancouver, and just kind of if you've got any kind of advice on how kind of like football is looking at retaining players that we can kind of not so much glean information from, but we can obviously then kind of adapt to fit our scenarios over here.
Thank you for having me, Jordan, and hopefully everybody's safe. I think it's really got us thinking that some of the questions we've never asked ourselves, asking ourselves, if that makes sense. And participation is, I think, a huge number. And even Vancouver, our numbers are going down. So over the last 5 or 6 years, we've revisited right from the top. How do we increase the participation level at the pyramid? Every model you look at, everybody's going from top down. We're saying, well, the under 18s can't compete. Well, hold on. How about if we put that sort of resource and energy into our grassroots very economically to increase the base? I'm consulting in India. That's my background, born there. Obviously spent a lot of time in England with football. I didn't quite make it as a pro, so that's what egged me on to go into coaching. And then I moved here to get full-time employment in coaching, which I've done. So we've started creating a program with the physical literacy methodology. So it's called the Academic Player Development Pathway. So as Tim alluded to, either they're lazy or they can't be studying that hard for A-levels. Come on. So can we create some fun programs? And it could be just me, Tim and I having arm wrestling once a week at the clubhouse, and we have an arm wrestling championship. Could be 3v3. So what we've done with the football, as I call it, and I get told off here because it's soccer, we've created 3v3 festivals for the schools. Could be match days. And the model that we've used, I can get 144 players on a full-size rugby field. You know, rugby and cricket was our thing when I lived in Warwickshire. So these are the programs. So we're trying to increase the masses down below. And B, we've even got programs where it's 1-with-1. So the parent comes in with a child and has a little bit of fun with Tim doing a 1v1. So now this whole circle is creating a family atmosphere. And then listening to Cal earlier, it's apples playing against apples, not oranges playing against apples, because we're going to have more people that want the competitive phase. And we've broken it down into competitive and non-competitive. Unlike Tim or John and saying, you know what, I want to play with my buddies, have a beer afterwards, get a curry and go home. That's my day. But then Carl says, well, no, hold on. I want to get up the pyramid. So do we have those pathways? And have we explained it to the parents or the families what those are? And I think coming back to yours, Cal, people like me, I ultimately endorse the decision the board's making. It's technically driven, not driven by a board that's administratively top heavy, as we call it. So I'm doing a particular project in Bangalore in India. Their first team got into the I-League, like the Premier League or whatever over there. They're losing money and then getting beat every week. So next year's first team in a lower division will be all under 23 players. So the first year we may hurt, but the ultimate goal is to build within the structure of the pyramid, if that makes sense. But on the parallel to it, what we've done for the students at 16, 17, we've got an online education program for them if they're residential. If not, we've established a few relationships with local universities. I've just done one in Sheffield, a good friend of mine, Chris Dolby. So we've created 3-month online programs for these players. And then the other feedback I got with this club in Bangalore, the players are getting bored with the sessions. I've just come off a UEFA B webinar, and the gentleman, young boy, I'm a little bit older, and I remember doing my A license, but it's not about just doing A, B, and C. Split the game down into different parts of the field, just like the pros are. Make these players feel like pros. You know, if it's rugby and we're doing a scrum in the attacking third, well, who do you really need to relate to those sessions? It's the pack of 8, maybe the fly-off, as it was called when I was there, and maybe the standoff is receiving the ball. You could just have that going on over and over. You know, I'm sorry to reference to Tim, and Tim could be coming in and smacking that standoff and saying, hey, that's what you're going to get on match day. So recreate the picture that you're going to get on match day. And obviously, you know, you guys are around this one, we've got to have fun doing it. When I was at Coventry City, Dion Dublin was there. I was fortunate as an apprentice. We used to love going into Brighton. Gary McAllister. And one of my fortes is we want to show the passion you have, create the training, it's fun, it's looking forward to it, but have silly things. In India, we had mangoes for the best players because mango is the given fruit. Everybody wanted to win this one mango, but little did they know we had one for everybody later. So how do we retain? And then the last piece before I go on too much, we're treating them like guests or family members. So they come through your front door. Did you look after them? Did everybody get a player profile? Did you get a game report? I know there's a lot of technology out there, but you can keep it very simple. Even if it's a 1v1 with somebody and saying to poor Tim, you know what, Tim, that's a great game you had today, but can you do better? Come to training with that attitude. So that's a little bit of background what I'm trying to achieve at my early ages of 60, you know, and let's keep it simple. Thank you, Jordan.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I do want to come on quickly because obviously we're very, I think most of our academies, from what I've seen, obviously looking through Twitter, doing my research on everyone as they sign up for this. I'd like to come to Harry because I believe if I'm correct, you deal with the women's side of the game.
I do, yeah.
So
yeah.
it'd be interesting to see kind of what the difference is on how you are dealing with recruitment of players, how you're dealing with retaining players, and also kind of keeping them active within the sport.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't want, what I'm trying to do with these things, sorry to cut you off, what I'm trying to do is to give us a full blanket of every kind of aspect. It's not just sport, hence why we've got kind of, or not just rugby, should I say, hence why we've got kind of Ajit here talking about football. Obviously, there's some other guys who are showing interest from Sport England and the tennis societies as well. So, yeah, Harry, women's rugby.
Yep. So a little bit of background. So I'm head coach at Seth Ladies. So we've got two sides. One side we play in. We've just been promoted into Champ 1 North. So that's the second tier, just below Tyrrell's Prem. And then a side who are quite closely linked with the university. And they play in the top of the merit leagues in Liverpool. And we're kind of looking to build that side up so we can develop a third side. This year also will take kind of under my umbrella will come the under 18 girls as well. So we'll be taking a little bit more interested in them, while previously they will run separately to us. So that everyone's kind of effectively being coached through the same idea of a pathway that someone could come in at under 18s and shift away through our program. As well as that, I'm involved with the Lancs Ladies and under 18 girls program as one of the backs coaches there. So the interesting thing with girls in the academy is that we've got the Centre of Excellence program set up with Tyrrell's Prem side. So looking at how players are getting the difference in some of those players who get access to those facilities, which aren't necessarily available to all players, particularly within the women's game. I think the big thing with kind of recruitment in the women's game is that we've got we tend to get them a lot later. So we're getting players at 18, at 19, at 20, even into their 20s who've never played the sport before. So how can, as coaches, can we get that love of the game up and running really quickly? And we rely a lot on the kind of the principles of the guys in the Magic Academy. This kind of idea of gamification and using games which are making it really game-based, really fun, scoring in as many opportunities as we can, allowing creativity, but actually gets them hooked on the idea, because that's what we need them to be kind of enjoyed and hooked on. And then we can go into the nitty-gritty of positional work or the technical stuff on the side of it. Last year we took a bit of a move, and actually we assigned one coach just to work with players who'd never played rugby before. And it freed up the rest of our coaching staff and the rest of our players to work in the actual kind of rugby environment and working in kind of the games and the skills and the technique. And it just meant that our players who were more experienced weren't having to go back to square one and learn, which they normally have to. And we saw a massive recruitment push. Normally we'd take maybe one or two players out of this group who've come to rugby, never played before, in September. And last year I think we took 8. Move them through, and actually we moved 2 of those right the way through into the first team by the end of the year. So just from separating them off and giving them their own kind of time and attention at the very start of the program, we saw a big difference later on in terms of how they developed. The interesting thing at the moment is, luckily for me, is because the girls are generally quite well established within their own kind of group, within the leadership group amongst those players, we've actually had to do very little at the moment in terms of setting up the activities. We've just kind of lent on a few players and they've run with it. So they've set themselves up with quizzes, they've set themselves up with activities. We've been really lucky around here that the Northwest women's sides have set up like a bit like what you guys are doing, like a weekly fixture effectively with Strava and on all those apps. So drawn up against each other, who gets the most kilometers by Friday. And then, you know, you win three points. If you didn't win, you don't get any points. So they've been out and about doing that. We've actually decided we didn't need to do much from a coaching point of view, which is quite nice. And probably quite rare because I think a lot of people are having to step in. But I think a lot of that is probably come from the fact we've tried to bring some of these players through into a leadership group. And by developing a leadership group quite early last year, it was a little bit sketchy at the time because some players thought they should be part of it and other players weren't so sure on that. We had this group of players who actually run a lot of that kind of club and social side of it without our input, which is quite good. So that's kind of what we're up to at the moment, really.
Very good, very good. It'd be interesting to see, I think, just having thoughts going through my head at the same time. I like the idea. So at Peterborough, we've obviously done, much like most of the clubs have done, that kind of monthly kilometre challenge. I'm just trying to come up with, I wonder if there's a way that we can start linking, obviously we're all from different clubs up and down the country, whether we can get I suppose like a league table going so that, you know, every 10 kilometres that your academy does is equal to one league point on the table, and we do it for the whole of July, and at the end of it the club gets something. I don't know how much you guys would be open to that, whether you get any engagement on that from your boys. Obviously if Harpenden have got 100 plus players, we might have to limit them how many people can take part.
The ones who don't cycle can join in.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do running again, I think. No cycling. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. That's just I think
Tim, you can use a swimming pool, mate. I've heard they're not open yet.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Up and down rivers.
Duathlon. But you've got swimming. I have cycling. Jordan can have a running.
Can I just say that we're in Harpenden, so practically everyone's got a swimming pool. It's ridiculous.
So we're all round Tim's then when it's face-to-face conference.
No, I haven't got a swimming pool. I can't afford to live in Harpenden.
Cool. Any other points on the kind of the first section, recruiting and retaining players? Focused around the kind of the lockdown issue that we've got at the minute. Any points? Chris has muted himself.
Yeah, just coming from my perspective as a DOR for a whole club. First year there, I was just head coach, so don't worry about anything outside of the first team. I then paved the way to say, actually, I need to be DOR because I've got an aging first team. It's going to come to an end in 2-3 years' time, so I need a cycle coming through. So my current first team is we're in London 2 South East now, and we're doing all right. We'll be all right this year, I think, being promoted. But I use 38 players, and 36 of those have all come through age grade. All played for the club, either from under 7, joining an age group all the way through, consisting of 3 age groups. So that's quite special, I think, for a first team to have that amount of kind of players in the team. So second year DOR, and I only had 3 players graduate through from the under 18s, and I hadn't, because the club's so big, I hadn't given enough time to it. Last year I had 16 graduate through from the under 18. And I think the reason for it in year 3, which is the best it's been since this kind of first team era had come through, was due to the fact that I brought in 2 years ago to that group and supplied first team players down to it. So we don't have an academy yet. and it is something that always comes up with the exec committee of, do we go for an academy? What do we do? How do we go about it? We don't have, in Ashford, we don't have any real good rugby schools. If you are good at rugby, you'll be on the Saracens pathway plan and you'll end up at Sutton Valence or somewhere like that, the private schools. And then you're kind of lost to us anyway. So that, again, is dealing with the top end of youth rugby. I want to worry about the 99 other percent, really, that's going to stay local to me. It's going to be my bread and butter. It's going to come through the age groups. And now, just on the girls' side of the club as well, we only had a ladies' team. And over the last 3 years, we've gone to 18s, 15s and 13s. So we've now got a pathway, because my big wins are women's rugby. There's so many quick wins for a rugby club to get in women's rugby. It's phenomenal. And especially if you attune the girls as they graduate out of playing with boys, they can spin off straight away into it, and it keeps them in. And now we're just looking at setting up, when we get back, hopefully we can do it this year, an over 50s walking touch team as well, which we've got some other clubs involved in. But I think I go back to Carl earlier, it's part of how we look after them when they come through. Taking the example of your brother playing at that level when he's not ready, that's a real club issue. And I think we see so much of that. That's just poor practice. And I've seen so much of that in my time that you just think, why do they have to get on a chair and sing a song after a debut? Why can't we just have decent Wi-Fi? Because we'll keep them in the club for longer. And also, can the 100 Club, most clubs have got the 100 Club, invest in stuff for the kids? So we've now got PlayStations in the rugby club, so we can have FIFA tournament and all of those little things that pick up and keep them in your clubhouse. And when they graduate through, it's such a dominated world on a Saturday afternoon, that male dominated world. How will you keep them? And even just the level of conversation from an 18-year-old to what could be a 31-year-old. Where do they connect? What's the key thing for them? One's playing at fullback, one's a giant second row. How do we make them two have a collision of conversation? So for me, new guy comes in, youngster, automatically they'll be assigned to somebody who's appropriate rather than inappropriate. They'll get looked after, they get a beer brought for them, or those kind of things. If they're not working, then we'll hopefully find work for them. I think there's so many little things with player retention and just being good people that I think goes just a really long way with the lads, really. And like I say, getting 16 through this year, I think it's a testament to them as a group. They've come through into as a team, as not as a team, because they're births. So some of them have been 17, and I've just said, no, they're not ready for adult rugby. They don't have the size or the physical structure or the emotional intelligence to play yet. They can just wait, and 1 or 2 months, and then they come through with 3 or 4 other of their team who have had their birthdays to make them 17 or 18, rather than just being a one that comes through straight away and gets lost. And then I guess from the player pool, I'm always looking at that one unique individual probably that will make first team and how I cater for him. So there's a whole kind of third team, second team, first team kind of diagram going on there all the time. So yeah, just from me, player retention, I think the kids, we've got to look after them. Somebody once said you can't win nothing with kids. Well, you can totally. It's just you got to look after them and make sure that they're all right coming through. And I think it's an age-old dilemma of academy rugby or being in control of that situation when they turn 17, 18, going into adult rugby and making sure that that's catered for all the time. And I think that's the tricky thing. That's why I'm so torn between academy setup and just coming into the senior game in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, I was gonna say kind of one question I got for you guys. We've got a problem within the kind of men's section of our club where a player will come through, like a really talented academy player will come through and they just get dropped straight into the first team. And a bit like we said that sort of up in aggression rate, the up in physicality. Like you said, they're coming up against a 31-year-old bloke who, you know, built like a brick shithouse, and how that player then leaves the game, and we've lost this really talented individual. But you know, sort of, I'm a coach as well, so I'm a greedy coach. I want that player as quickly as I can. How do we put in place the pathway which protects that player and actually lets them graduate through that system at a pace they're comfortable with, rather than necessarily dictated by the coaches?
For me, that's the hardest question to answer out of the lot. I think it's down to the individual. I think now with the youngsters coming through, they have an expectation that they'll have an individual player development plan. They'll be looking at that. They'll be looking at who they can also lean to in the team. I don't think we'll see, probably maybe back row players come through. I think we'll see. I don't think we're going to see any front row, second row guys coming through like 18-year-old that are going to walk into a first team currently. I think if they do, I'd love it. Certainly, I think they're a rare commodity. And then I think also, what have they done in terms of player pathway? Where have they been? What have they done? So like Kent, Harpenden, we're all assigned to Saracens. Now, getting them to understand that 153 kids go through that pathway in Kent alone, and then you take in Essex and you take in Hertfordshire, that's 400 nearly kids, you know, in one age group. And you've got a Saracens training top, you've got all the gear. Have you got an idea? And I think that's holding on to that and just saying, look, that's great, but you're not there yet.
Yeah.
Your next part of the journey is come back, let's look at it. This is what Saracens have said. And I think the beauty of it is we're now open to having conversations with those pathway players, pathway coaches, to get a better understanding of what the issues are. It could just be a numbers game, you know. Ultimately, it's where they've been, what they've done, and I think emotional intelligence goes a long way. But like you say, 31-year-old blindside annihilates him on the blind side of a ruck. See you later, vaporised. It looks like something from the Avengers. People are disappearing. What do you do?
So I think that's the job of an academy, is to manage that process through. And if you've got a greedy first team head coach, you tell him to fuck off and say, no, you know, he's our lad and we're protecting him for the future of the club, and he will play first team, but he's not playing this month or next month, you know. And you manage that. And we've got luckily we've got a really strong director of rugby and a very strong chairman who very much supports the academy. And I'm last season I was forever having arguments with the first team coach who wants, you know, X, Y, Z of our lads. And some of them were ready and they went through and they played in the first team and were successful, and that's great. Backs, I have to say. But he wanted a couple of our forwards as well, and it was just like, they're not ready. You're not having them. Simple as that. You know, and these lads are playing school rugby. They're playing these boys that he wanted are also in the Saracens PDG or academy in some situations, as well as playing in the academy, and then suddenly it's senior rugby, and it's too much. And so we because we have that many players, we can rest people, you know, and that works really, really well. But it's I mean, my job to manage that pathway through into senior rugby, so it's done really, really well. And all I care about, with the greatest respect to the rest of the club, is those boys, and I don't care about the first team because they're fine. So it's my job to look after those boys. And actually, the academy's job is, yes, to integrate them into the senior team. We've got 4 senior teams, so they can go and play fours, you know, with some of their mates, and it's a laugh for them. But also, most of my lads will go to university, so I'll lose them from the club for 3 years, 4 years. But as long as they stay in rugby, playing at university, wherever they end up living, then our job's being successful as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
What the RFU have said now, like linking to that liaising with players, is having that after legacy thing. So the RFU have said that you're allowed dual registrations, which I found out, which my committee had no idea.
passport registration.
Which is proper old. Honestly, they're proper old school at the moment. And you just go into a conversation with an idea, and they're like, no. And talking about rugby about 20 years ago. And I'm like, lots and lots of things have changed now. We've just got to get on board with it, or these situations will keep keep going down. So we're in the same boat as you. And we had 3 years ago, we're in London South East Premier, where most of our lads grew up playing as a Colts and all this lot. So they're all 28, all growing up all together. Then we went to London South East Premier, which is just a money pool, where we were playing one weekend, we were away at Guernsey, then the next Tunbridge Wells, and you're like, we're just a small village club, really.
Yeah.
So either if you put the money in, or you lose that home player identity, which the committee were like, we'll keep our homegrown players, and we went to Guernsey and lost 80-0, and you're like, great trip.
It is a good trip. It's full of people.
Like that was it. Like, and then you go to Tunbridge Wells and lose 70-0 because their front row were like, oh yeah, we get paid sponsorship money, like £400 a game, and you're like, I had to pay my fuel to get it. And you're just like, what's got to move on? So it's like the committee have got to move on with the direction you want it to. And sometimes I find it personally hard, and I'm sure Jordan does too, is with our age, they look at you and go, you know what I'm on about? But then they look at you like what you've got ideas-wise and how respected you are to other things. They have to start listening to you, because if you're starting at this academy like I did 6 months ago, the committee just look at you and going, oh, you're just a try-hard, but then you start showing figures and start showing you're determined. So my advice for it is, if you're got that struggle of committee, push forward, keep trying ideas, little ideas, start baiting the committee and start just divide and conquer. So that I had to go to the first team coach and go, oh, look at this guy that house cut, it was, oh, that's a great idea. So I've got him on board. So that's one voting committee. Then I'll go to the secretary and go, oh, any chance we can sort out some sponsorship for the lads to get some shirts? Oh, it's a brilliant idea, because of changing the image. So the social media guy is all on board, because the boys aren't turning up. They're good rugby players, no doubt, but they're not all rocking up wearing odd things where we're playing guys all in the same gear. And the boys are like, oh, we're just like farmers, but they're not. They're decent rugby players, so they're changing the image, and they're like, oh, so we're just divide and conquer. And that's what I found. I'm still going through the approval process. The under-16s are obstructing to it for some reason. But I'm just getting on it with the 17s and 18s. And if the 16s jump on board, yes, it's going to be more successful. But I've already had under 16 parents going, any chance we can have some personal sessions, because they want to be part of it. We're just waiting for these old school coaches to just change their mind. So I've got ex-pros coming in when the season starts and doing some sessions. So the boys look up and go, oh, he's coming to coaches. He's played at the World Cup. So I've got Tonga Weir, ex-Northampton Saints, doing a scrummaging session. I've got James Grayson, who plays for Northampton Saints. I grew up playing with him at East Mids. So he's come for like a kicking session. My best mate, luckily enough, name dropping here, but Charlton Kerr, who's in Sevens, England's cycle. So he
don't really know him. Don't start laughing. You don't know him.
I know everyone. Eddie Jones is coming now. Charlton Kerr said when he's available, he'll come down and look at things, because that is his club. So that's bringing players who played growing up when I was 7 years old who gave me my nickname, going all the way to England, but still wants to come back and help to his mates. So that's looking at committee are now looking at it and going, he's bringing players back who haven't been at the club since they've turned professional. That's something positive. So they're all turning their mindset now, going, actually, he's moving forward. So it's just being patient and throwing ideas out. If they don't work, they don't work. But you're trying. So yeah, it's just keep experimenting and just throw things out there. The boys will buy into it, whatever the occasion. If you're into it, they'll buy into it.
Yeah, I'll link on to the back of that. Obviously, I've been working with Cal, or helping Cal, chatting with Cal over the past couple of months to help him set up his academy. Peterborough, we kind of fell into it. It was a case of we had an under-16s team where all the head coaches and all the coaching staff walked out in February. And myself at the time was doing coach development work. And Sis was, who's in with us today, was just a busybody helping everyone out at every age group, working with Saints at the time as well, I believe. And they put us all together and kind of brought us in to kind of take over ownership of this under-16 squad that was slowly kind of collapsing. We then got to the point where we then started training with our current under-17s and our under-18s at the time. And that's where the kind of the academy process began for us. It happened by chance. It was an idea. Myself and Sis, and AD at the time, who was the head coach for that kind of group, sat down, tried to work out some form of a plan of how we could all train together on the same nights, how we could work together, run teams against each other. And then over the past kind of 2 seasons, we've kind of worked together. Sis was a coach at one of our squads known as the Invincibles, to which they went and won a rather large amount of trophies, to which he's not shy about explaining to everyone how many trophies they did win in the end. So we kind of all came together, all kind of merged as one, and it kind of all fell into place over the past 2 years. We've been working to formally build our structure. This season is the first kind of chance, the first opportunity that we're going to have to reformat and to kind of think about how we bring people in, how we get players through the door, how we get them to training, what kind of stuff we need to be doing at training, thinking about again, like I said earlier, our kind of season plan, our map for the whole season, so that we know that we've got a league match coming up on the 10th of November. The 2 weeks before that, we need to be thinking about our league structure, our league games, and allowing the boys to access that as well, so they know exactly when they turn up training, this is what they're going to see, this is what they're going to have, they know exactly what the training plan is going to be for that week, they know who's going to be coaching them. It's kind of the full package. Obviously, every academy is different. I'm sure Harriet with the women's academy is slightly different laid out. It may be the same. This is the kind of the chance where we can kind of talk through it. I know John is from Sunderland, I believe. He's going through the process now of trying to understand, much like most people are, how do we get these boys in? How do we kind of format it? How do we look at kind of who takes ownership, who leads it, what coaching staff do you need, that kind of stuff. So, without kind of rabbiting on, we can go through all the whole process if you want. We can go through start to finish, or we can open it up and we'll kind of do questions and everyone has an opportunity to kind of answer. I have seen John's unmuted himself, so that might be a question coming.
Well, we had a meeting yesterday. We've always had a pathway. We've got age grade teams. We've had coach set up for years. So I think the decision was, after the first team were promoted this year, to rebrand the course into an academy. Without, I think the senior committee don't really have any idea what an academy is. So it's over to the coaches. So I'm the 16s coach moving to 17s. I coach DPP at the Falcons, etc. So to me, the 17s going to an 18s coach to decide what it actually looks like. So it's a lot of research, a lot of talking to people, a lot of talking to one another, because I think when you bring in two teams together, you bring in coaches who've been with their lads for 10 years. They're used to running it a certain way, and really, if this is going to work, we need to put something in place which is going to survive me being there and the guy I'm working with being there and all the other coaches, and it's going to be sustainable. So I think that's all about vision, and it's all about values, and it's all about what's the purpose, the expectations, what they're going to get. And in the Northeast, there isn't a massive tradition of coach academies. There is a coach league. We, before COVID, we sat down as a group in Durham. We'd arrange for, I think we're going to be doing ex-rugby sevens through the summer and into a league format. But that hasn't happened, so we're trying to figure out where we're going to be, where we're going to be kicking off. So there's a lot of things to do, and our initial meeting yesterday was kind of a bit like gunfight in the OK Corral, standing around in the park, couldn't get into the rugby club, we're not allowed. It was like the scene from The Sopranos. We're all sort of coming up with what we're going to do, what's the idea, and really the number of it is having an end point in mind, the fact that we want the boys to enjoy it, want it to be the best seasons, the best season or seasons of their lives, and to, you know, and to have a pathway into senior rugby and supported pathway, which it is at the moment at our club. You know, we've gone from, you know, having 2 teams recently to this season you're going to field 4 teams, vets, touch, we do all that. So starting with that end point in mind and having an understanding of one another. And I'm interested, I'm a teacher by trade, so I'm interested in getting the organisation right, getting the plans in place, getting the managing the expectations of the players, managing the expectations of the parents, and communicating that it's a different setup and it's a step up. So I don't think there's a question in that, more a statement. I'm just listening, really interested to everyone's input, writing down lots of notes, getting some ideas, and there's some definite gems that come out of this discussion which we can implement. But as I said, when you're meeting with other coaches for the first time who you haven't coached with, I think the most discouraging or off-putting thing would be to someone come and say, look, I've got 39 ideas, you know, where we're going to start. So just got to be really careful to bleed things in gradually and see how many we get. I think we're looking at about 30 players when we come together next Tuesday, and just see what comes of it.
Yeah, I think like you say, the kind of the blending of like multiple coaches is always a tricky one. Like at Lancs this year, we had a completely new coaching setup apart from the head coach, who was the only one that stayed for the girls. So you were bringing together these 4 guys who we'd met once before we had the trial session, and then you're all judging and assessing, and there's the arguments of which players come through, and then a week later we were stood on the pitch together, supposed to run a session together, and we're all still judging each other out. But the big focus for us, like you say, was that the head coach, it was all about just the girls. It was part your egos for a minute, lads, and focus on the girls having a good night, because actually when we all sat down and we got the girls having a good night, we all slot in around each other, and you just sort of find where, you know, whether you're comfortable to sit back in certain sections or sessions and let them come through. But by positivity and enjoyment being a key focus, we slotted in quite nicely as a coaching group. So that was a kind of core value to our program, really.
Jordan, if I can come in, can you guys hear me? Yeah, sorry about the internet. We're having a few problems. I think building academies, it doesn't what sport it is. You need your core values, and John's just touched on being a teacher. I don't class myself as a coach. I've been coaching for 30 years. I'm a facilitator. The last question I asked myself at the session, would these players return to have another session with me? You know, I do courses on ethical decision making. So in that sort of plan, John, is there sort of pathway? Who is the lead coach? What is the philosophy? What's your mission statement? What does the club look for? And I know, Harry, you've touched on having a great time. To me, it's ultimately up there because that's your retention. Like I said, if somebody comes into my house for a beer and I'm going, yeah, we don't have any beer today. I've dropped, here's a glass of water because it's my best. Some of my friends come in. I'm not really prepared, am I? Can I say, oh, we went over to Jeet's house and bloody hell, he's a tight ass and didn't offer, what do we stand for? Our house comes in now. I'm lucky with my good lady. We have a big deck at the back and if he comes in, hey, let's go and sit outside, have a beer. And the players have got to feel part of that process, same as a coach, same as this project in Bangalore. I've gone on as a TD consultant. And when I went there, we invited coaches that wanted to get involved, but they ran sessions for me. And then I debriefed with them. Simple process. Did it go well? What didn't go well? And then I asked the players, I said, what did you think of the coach? Wanted to know what attracted them. And even the coach would say to me, what do you want us to coach? I said, I don't really care what you coach, but can you connect with the players? And I'll tell you afterwards. Can you connect with the players? If you got a squad of 30, John, could you have a coach who can bring 30 together with a staff of 3? There's a goal. That's not easy, is it? As Harry said, it's personalities, philosophies. But building academy from scratch, we've done 2. I was at one club for 10 years, then 9 years, and I'm just starting this one. Probably my last project is I've got to get that white sheet of paper and start putting dots and X's on and say, where do I connect these? For the coaches, there's a pathway. And the last part for me is open communication, Harry, as you said. So what we did in India when we went back, every 2 weeks, I was lucky, they put me in a nice apartment. We would have a social. And you know what? It wasn't a social, it was just the beer part. We ended up talking about the program, how to correct it, how could we make each other better, but it was in a comfortable environment. And I think with football, we're lucky, even in England, and certainly in Vancouver now, in America, and there are more paid positions. That's some of the issues that, Cal, you're running into, is you got probably volunteers been sitting on some of these seats for 30 years and saying, well, no, we don't do that. Well, the question I is, why don't we do it? Harry's laughing, why don't we do it? That's the mod. And the last piece I'll finish off, some of these are still children. How do you tell a 16, 17-year-old I'm going to be compatible with a 31-year-old? His language is going to be different. What his experience is. I hate to think what a young 31 single person is going to be doing at Saturday night. I don't know what a 16-year-old's doing nowadays, but I'm sure there's a big gap. How do we bring that gap together? My role integrating from the reserves, I sat on the first team bench for at least 2 years as the first sub, because we only had one sub, but in midweek I would play a game in the reserves. And then Chris would come and say, hey, that's a great game in the reserves, but don't forget, oh, by the way, Saturday, you're on for 10 minutes, you're on for 20 minutes, then 30 minutes. Then Chris is going, I like this boy, but I'm not going to bump his ego. And all of a sudden the gaffer would say, hey, you're back with the reserves. So it went on for 2 years of right at the first team. The same with coaching at 28, first team coach came in, good friend of mine. He said, we've got good news, bad news. I said, what's up? He says, good news, we're going to promote you to play a coach. And then I said, what's the bad news? You're no longer going to play in the first team. And I didn't know what to say to him, but I wanted the coaching. So eventually we sat down. I said, look, I love the pathway. He says, you're not quite there. You're 28, your legs are going, the usual stuff in England. He says, I said, he says, but you're great as a coach. Come on board. So I shadowed him for 2 or 3 years, Carl, before I got my own team in the old Southern League, Conference League, it's called now. And then from there, obviously, I've moved on technical. But really that vision, John, and sort of template, how do we work together? What does the club stand for? That's how I'm going about this brand new project in Bangalore. Fortunately, I've been given almost a clean piece of paper and saying, get on with it. So those are really important parts to integrate coaching staff and definitely youth players amalgamating or integrating with senior players. Thank you.
No, that's perfect. That's great. I suppose realistically, we've got to kind of think about, looking at communication. Let's start there. That's one of the biggest things that we're improving this year. That's one of my personal goals to improve this year. And I know John Sizz, who's here tonight, will probably agree with us that our communication within the Peterborough Academy over the last season wasn't fantastic. And for me in the head coach position, then it wasn't the greatest that I didn't have clear communication. But also likewise, we had quite a few disagreements within coaching staff. It's all about, we need to make sure that our coaching staff is all on the same page. We need to make sure that, we understand what's going on. We understand kind of who's going to be responsible for what, who's going to be looking after what. So this year we've kind of fully restructured everything, with Sizz taking over as our kind of senior academy head coach, and that kind of allows me to entrust. I've shadowed Sizz for the last 3 or 4 years. He's been at Peterborough for, well, I think since the club was invented in 1920 or something like that. He's been around for a long time. So shadowing and being able to learn from what he's done, and obviously then it's now time we need to push. We need to look at, we're getting onto all sorts of social media. We've launched Instagram within the last kind of 2 weeks to get our players on there, to start driving recruitment, looking at social media, but also having that kind of traditional outlook on things as well. We're a very kind of traditional club. We've been going nearly 100 years, that kind of stuff, but also looking at our player development and our player pathways. I have managed to chat to a couple of times the pathway manager for Bristol Bears and the guys at Tigers, who are going to join us hopefully on the next call, when we kind of think about, okay, so we've got our own pathway within our club. We're kind of thinking that, okay, when they come into our academy at 16, or this is our view at Peterborough, that when they come in at 16, we're using the same calls, the same squad structure, the same layout. That, when they come in at 16, we're progressing. We're looking, Sizz has done quite a lot of work with Saints DPP and the local county squad. So he's kind of looking at, okay, these players are good for us, but we need to start pushing them pathways wise. Thinking about what we were talking about earlier with when Tim was here about specific player programs and stuff like that. That's something we want to look at this year. But then we've also got our direct route, so that we then feed into our second squad or our third squad, seconds, first. But then we also branch out that we're highlighting those kind of key players to go DPP wise, EPDG wise, to get up to the next level. So yeah, I forgot where I started now. Communication is key. Sizz, I don't know if you want to. Very quiet. Oh, sorry, Jim. Go on.
I've got another Zoom call at 1:30. Good luck, gentlemen. And if I can help any way through, Jordan, feel free. Whether it's, again, I don't think it's what sport you're in, but that model originally on paper is the key, and communications come up. So great to see some great faces with the accents, and I do miss that. So good luck. And Jordan, I appreciate you having me on, and excuse the internet problem earlier. Thank you, gentlemen.
No worries, perfect. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you, mate.
So, Mr. Sizz-me, you're on mute, sir.
I can't hear you very well, Jordan, I must admit, but I'd like to go back just a little bit, because the 2 seasons that we've struggled with player numbers at under 18, I've found that it's been the groups that have not had a consistent coach from under 10 through. So I've had a different coach every year. They've not really learned rugby ethos, getting together as a team, putting the kit out, loving your club, looking after it. Just that's the sort of area where, as a club, it's really good if you can get a good coach to come through consistently with the age groups. I think we've had 2 years now. We're just coming through now to a good year where they've got I think they've, how many coming through for 16, Jordan? Quite a lot.
Stuart's age group at 16s, I think they've got about 22.
Yeah, but the 2 we've really struggled years before with numbers. We've been really low, 8. We've been struggling to get a team on the pitch really. So if you can put a coach in earlier on, to guys get to know what rugby is all about. It's not just about turning up, but looking after your rugby club, looking after the kit, and that sort of thing. That's the only comment really I'd make. It's been really interesting chat from everybody tonight. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sid.
Just quickly on that point about coaches and things like that. So obviously, like I said, director of rugby at Ashford, but I also coach my own son's age group at a different club completely, a little fishing village called Whitstable on the Kent coast. And it's a lovely little club. But one of the things that we did there was we paid a coach to be there at the under sevens. So our front door into the club as such is a paid position, and the other position is the head coach in the senior section. Now, what his job is for the under sevens is to get them all sorted, find the next coaches, 3 of them, a team admin to take them through to under 18s, hopefully. So it's a bit like your point, somebody that's going to be there consistently, teach them the core values, love the club. So we kind of got that under sevens, but I mean, this is a very small club compared to where I'm at on a Saturday and the other Sundays. So it's, I think that's a really good point. Love your club, totally and utterly. And I think that's, I think some attunement might be needed as they get older, in terms of how we look after them. But certainly the front door where they naturally come in at under 7, under 6, that's a paid position. Something that I haven't got at Ashford yet. I would like to, because I think it's just a valuable point, really. And I know that it's 10 years younger than what we're looking at today, but I think it's a really good point.
And I think that's a very interesting point that you've actually got a paid position on the sevens. Do you change that every year, or is it that?
No, so the guy that's been there has been there now he's been in that position for 5 years. Okay. So he just stays with the under sevens. He's retired. He basically done 2 age groups through, with his 2 children. Was like, oh, what can I do? I don't really want to be going around everywhere, And we were like, well, why don't you just drop in at under sevens and just stay there consistently? He was like, yeah, I can herd cats. That's fine. And catch, pass, run, teams of 4. And then it's quite funny, he'll only ever be at home. He never goes away. So if they've got a festival and they've got to travel, off you go. This is your learning time. Off you go, take them to the festival. And I'll keep back just in case any new ones stay. Totally screwed on. But yeah, I think that's worked wonders for us. And now, because we like so many other clubs, being so small, Whitstable, it had all those exactly the same brackets of age groups falling off the radar completely, and then no coaches or no first aiders. And now we've got 30 to 40 players in each age group coming through all the way now up to under 12s. So yeah, we've in front of my age group, which is quite nice because there's 3 ex-rugby players. We've got some mums doing first aid, do the cake sales and all that. So now going into that junior element of the club, we should just see all that naturally push through the whole club, really. I'm doing it with my hands. I don't know why.
TikTok.
That's it. I'll get on TikTok. I'm on there already. No.
There you go. John, just coming back to you, because I know obviously this is something that you're very keen to kind of develop at Sunderland. Being as we have got obviously Cal, who's done it recently, we've got Chris and Harry, who are also starting up their academy. Is there any questions that you've got to kind of pick everyone's brains and get extra kind of advice on?
I think starting point, where you start, how you get that message out there. Because, as I said, being involved with the age grade, you can plan sessions, you can do all that, and coach, but it's bringing the different age groups together effectively, and setting some different parameters. That would be my main one. Bringing the ages together, bringing the age groups, the coaching groups together, and doing it as quickly as possible.
take that, anyone? Anyone want to take a lead on how to get age groups together? Sismi, you look like you're about to.
I can't hear what you're saying, Jordan.
Well,
I would say on that point, try and identify some leaders in the 17s and 18s and get them to set the team parameters, if you like. That's quite successful. And it helps their leadership through the group as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, we make sure our players select our values. So as coaches, we've got kind of what we're leaning towards as a set of values, but all of our players are involved in that sort of finalisation stage. And it just means they're theirs, so they've got that ownership of them, which hopefully, especially if you're bringing two groups together, might mean you get that ownership across the groups. And then it also gives you something nicely to fall back on. If someone isn't adhering to the values, it's not we told you these values, it's they were set by you and your mates, and now you're going against what's set by you and your mates, not necessarily what's set by me, which I think particularly with 17s and 18-year-olds can be quite a powerful tool, because authority doesn't always sit too well with that age group.
Yeah, and I guess just from my perspective, if you've got coach buy-in, and the coach is keen to do it, because if you've got coach buy-in, that joined up thinking, then you're kind of going to be halfway there, because they should be dropping that message into the player group that this is happening, how it's going to be executed.
Yeah, I think it's for us, it's just a question of approaching things. I've got to approach things in a different way. I'm on the senior committee anyway, so I'm not like a Trojan horse. We've gone from a coach structure to an academy, and as I said earlier, the existing coaches now just don't know what that looks like. So it's trying to really get them to think a little bit differently about this season and about what the structure is going to be, I suppose.
Do a family tree.
Yeah, good idea. That.
Yeah. 13, 14. Sunderland till we die.
Yeah, we didn't go up this year.
And then do a cult section, 18s, 17s, 16s.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and I think I love that idea of love your club. I mean, these are things that we talk about, and I love the idea of having house teams, and we've got lots of legends, lads who've passed recently that could work with. I think it's exciting. I like change personally. I don't like to stay, being in the same coaching group since under 7s within our club. So I think part of the challenge is to see what we can build together and see if it works for us, I think. And it'd be interesting I was very fortunate. There's a guy on Twitter who I was in touch with, who's at Highland Rugby Club in Scotland, in Inverness, because I used to play in Scotland. And he's got Ian Chisholm. He was their academy head, and he's a DOR, and they're a brilliant team. But he's just shared everything, all their stuff. I mean, he just gave me OneDrive link to everything that he's got, which, it's like bedtime reading. It's fascinating stuff. Their playbook, their academy session plans, everything.
While we're here.
I mean, our club doesn't
when they start sharing the physio, we've got to start worrying.
But just, that sort of, it does get you thinking about what's possible with the group. And we're talking about, I think in Ashford, you're talking about rugby playing skills. There's 0 rugby playing skills in Sunderland. Absolutely not. Historically there was, but there's 0. We don't have that problem. Our problem is football or cans in the park. That's our problem. So we've got the pull is, getting lads from these council estates who might be doing MMA and getting them into rugby. That's our problem. It's all, so
Good training session.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. We do a lot of grappling and stuff. Yeah, but it's getting the word out. And I think for us, talking about the magnet for any team, and the magnet for our team, my team in 16, 15 particularly, is, you know, influencers who are within the team, who are because to know each other across schools because of social media. So kids who are influential across social media, if they're in the team and they're loving it and they're posting pictures covered head to toe in mud in the middle of Cumbria, you know, that's where we're sucking players from. But it's just trying to build that up again. Yeah.
I think Tim touched on a really important point earlier on as well around this idea of players going off to university and actually our responsibility, particularly dealing with kind of 17, 18-year-olds. We're still successful if that player goes off and settles somewhere else and plays good rugby elsewhere. I think sometimes, particularly some of the kind of more old school committee members can sometimes be a little bit more focused on, we want to retain those players, but actually if you're focusing on just making the coach or the player a good individual and a good rugby player, so actually wherever they end up, they're going to be welcome in a club. You've done your job, and you're more likely, if that's your vision, your goal as a coaching group, you're much more likely to create good individuals and a program which attracts players, because they're not, you know, I've seen it with some of our lot, the guys sign up for university and the coaches suddenly, you know, push them to the side. They don't start them. They're not talking to them as much because they're not going to be there next year in the senior program. But that's not really what it's about. It should be about that player's going to go off and experience uni rugby and go and settle somewhere else and play good rugby.
Yeah.
So yeah, those core values can be really important.
And the rugby world is so small.
Yeah.
It is so small. Somebody will have to link in or a connection somewhere to support that player when they go off to uni, whether that be a club or a friend up there or anything like that. I mean, our boys we have a returners festival in Kent so we have a north and south part of Kent, and we'll do a returners festival at Canterbury. You know, you get 300 kids up there that have just come back from uni in that bracket 18 to 21 playing rugby. It's brilliant, and you just keep them attached to your club, even if they don't come back. They've got an extra piece of stash from that goes somewhere else, and somebody sees it and they like it, and you know, it's just great stuff. But core values are key.
I'm gonna have to leave because the dog needs a walk, but I'll hopefully join a similar forum again. Jordan, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no worries. I think we've been going for an hour and a half now, so if anyone's got any other burning questions, if not, we'll draw it to a close. As I say, I've been speaking with the guys from Bristol Bears, Saints and Tigers from their pathways and development. So hopefully we'll do another one kind of mid-July time, and we'll look at how we kind of go from academy through to our senior team and how we're developing our players to get to that level, but also the kind of designated pathways that the Premiership clubs are kind of opening now, and how they're running training, and trying to get a bit of an insight into what we need to do to get our players in there, but also what they're looking at specifically, because obviously every Premiership pathway is different. They all look for different stuff. So yeah, we'll probably do that about then. But no, thank you very much for kind of everyone who's come out. I hope it has been worthwhile. I know Tim was having some internet issues. I think his son crashed his broadband halfway through, so I'll catch up with him. But yeah, any questions? Everyone's got me on Twitter, so shoot me a message on Twitter. I think everyone's got Cal on Twitter now as well. Me and Cal are very much in the same place, working together very closely. So yeah, any questions? We'll keep sharing ideas and keep sharing stuff that we're doing. And yeah, just be good to keep in touch, and then we'll get one set up for mid-July sometime.
Sounds great.
No, thanks for organising this.
Yeah,
Thanks for organising, Jordan.
Yeah, nice one. Good stuff.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Cal, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.